To be a girl or to be a woman? That is the question. In today's society, we're often faced with two choices: to embrace the carefree curiosity of a girl, or to conform to the expectations placed upon us as women. Girlhood embodies our vulnerability, our innocence, our urge to continuously learn whilst having to navigate the systems we were born into. Womanhood embodies the wisdom we have attained, the more years we have lived, but society tells us that the older we get, the more wrinkles we gain. Our fear of turning another age should increase. The patriarchal society we are in and the capitalist rules we abide by have informed us that after 25 we are no longer in our prime. Baby, I don't have a prime. The older I get, the better I get, the badder I get. My prime is eternal, my darling. I am 25 years old. I'm just a girl. But I am also a woman. We don't have to choose between the two because both can coexist within us. My name is Maria Antonette Fernando, and welcome to the first episode of the Girl and Woman podcast. Hello, my sweethearts. So to start this first episode of the Girl and Woman podcast, this is an introductory episode where I will divide it into 4 chapters. Chapter 1, about me. Chapter 2, the creation of the podcast. Chapter 3, the difference between the girl and the woman. And chapter 4, audience expectation. This is going to cover what this whole podcast will be about, how it was created, but we're going to start off with knowing a little bit more about your host, Miss Maria Antonette. Please come in. Hey guys! Chapter 1, about me. I am 25 years old, even though everybody I meet and the comments on my TikTok will always be, I thought you were 16, 18, 20. You know, some people have even said to me I look 12. Excuse me. Growing up, some of my friends would even call me a vampire because they said I just don't look like I've aged. The only way I can explain my face is that I have Asian genes, and it also doesn't help that my height is of a 12-year-old because I am 5 foot nothing. And if I really wanted to admit it, I could even say I'm probably 4'11", but I don't want to admit it, so I'm going to keep saying I'm 5 foot. My height is probably going to be a surprise for the people who only know me on social media, because every single time I meet someone I know off socials, they will always tell me how surprised they are of how short I actually am. I've had people say to me that in my pictures I look about 6 foot. Excuse you? I just know how to look taller in pictures and how the person taking my photo should take it so I don't look short. I was born in the Philippines. Apari Cagayan represents, and I do know how to speak Ilocano and Tagalog. Call me a trilingual queen, thank you. I don't know if this about me chapter is giving like first date vibes or job interview. I grew up with my grandparents when I was younger and then immigrated to the UK when I was 5 years old. I realised I was spreading misinformation on my TikTok because I kept saying I moved to England when I was 4 years old, but I found my first ever passport and it said I became an immigrant July 2003, just a few months before I turned 6. I grew up in an area where it was statistically, factually 97% of a white demographic. Now, I have had people come up to me or assume that I am a city girl. At uni, people would be so surprised to know where I'm from in England because they would always say, wait, I thought you were a London girl. You seem like a London girl. I don't know if they ever meant it in an insulting way or a compliment way, but I am actually an island girl. That's my origins. The one thing I will always hear from people who meet me in real life, Ever since I was young, wherever I am in the world, people will always mention I am just so smiley. Why are you so happy all the time? Even people I didn't even realize knew my existence would always just say to me, you're just so smiley, you're just so happy all the time. Which is very different to the persona I give off on Instagram, because I never ever smile on my pictures. And I realized it's because when I smile in pictures, my cheeks are actually quite big, so I don't like it. So I rarely post pictures of me smiling. Even though in real life, I'm just like this, 24/7. I don't believe someone's intelligence is defined by their academic success. I think people's intelligence is based on their willingness to constantly learn. But saying that, I do have a Master of Science in International Development. I did do my master's for the academic validation, and also I didn't really want to enter the real world, as you call it. It's like when you officially leave academic schooling, you've officially entered womanhood, adulthood, even though I'm just a girl. Contrary to what people might think, I actually am a very private person. Anyone who knows me in real life know that I don't really share many things. I'm very cautious. I'm very hesitant. I don't really like people asking me about my life a lot of the times. Social media may come across different because it seems as though I share a lot, but I know what I'm sharing. I have realized this year that I actually am an avoidant attachment style. So maybe the reason I grew up to be such a private person was because I actually had a fear of being vulnerable. My friends and sisters would always call me heartless, an ice queen. I rarely ever cry or show my vulnerability, which this year I really am trying to improve on, because I'm a woman now. I'm becoming more self-aware. I'm becoming more willing to change little things that I don't like in myself. Chapter 2, the creation of the podcast. On TikTok months and months ago, I received a comment from a sweet girl saying if I ever made a podcast that she would listen to it every single day. I did a video reply to it, and I said that I actually wasn't sure if I would make a podcast or really see myself hosting one soon, because I felt like if I did a podcast on my own, people wouldn't really be interested in what I had to ramble on about for 40-50 minutes. I didn't even know if I had that much to say to start a podcast. I also said that if I were to start a podcast, I would want to have a co-host or have a guest. And at the time, I felt like it was a little bit daunting to just start a podcast. However, the more videos I posted, the more comments I received of people saying they would listen to my podcast if I made one. There became this sudden demand, and when there's a demand, there needs to be a supply. So your girl has to give the people what they want. You want a podcast? You will get a podcast, my sweethearts. Over a month ago, I woke up one morning and I just said to myself, girl, I'm starting a podcast. I got up, got my pen, my notebook, my MacBook, and I wrote podcast with a bubble around it. One thing about me, I like to brainstorm, make mind maps, and just make something look visually pretty. I wrote down name of podcast. I thought, what should I name this podcast? Within 10 seconds of writing that down, I kid you not, I wrote The Girl and Woman. Then I thought, why is that the name that came to my head? Within 5 seconds, tell me why I'm suddenly writing down a whole paragraph of the reason why my podcast is going to be called The Girl and Woman. I really thought to myself, wow, this was God-willed. God wanted me to do this podcast, because how did this brainstorming session turn out so well, and how did I get all these ideas come to me so quickly? So from being hesitant to making a podcast, I am obviously now at a point where I'm certain of this creation. I have decided that I will be hosting this podcast on my own. I felt as though this does represent me in a lot of ways because I love being alone. I love my alone time, my solitude. It also symbolizes my hyper independence, and it also confirms the fact that I do speak to myself 24/7. I'll be having a whole team meeting with me, myself and I. I'll literally be holding therapy sessions with me, myself and I. There's the girl and the woman inside of me, and every voice of me needs to be heard. So this podcast just reflects how much questions I ask myself, how much analysis I give my thoughts, feelings and experiences. I give myself the answer to my own questions. I was searching everywhere, reading all these reviews, watching reviews on what mic to get. I was looking at the comparisons, and maybe it's because I'm not a tech girly, but as a viewer, when they would make comparisons of the different mics, I couldn't hear a difference. One thing I did research on though is having a microphone with USB. So this mic is connected to my MacBook in front of me, and that's how it's recording. I just felt like it was easier that way. I mean, there were a lot of mics that were really expensive, but I really thought, do I really need to spend that much money when this podcast is literally in my bedroom with me, myself and I? So I just bought what I think is like the starter microphone. This is the Blue Yeti. I posted a TikTok when my microphone got delivered, and I stated that I am just a girl. I don't know what gain or pattern means on the microphone. All I know is mute and volume. Luckily, this lovely pretty girl explained what they both were, and she explained that one of them needs to be on the heart shape. I absolutely love it when girls explain things in girly ways, and also I love girls who explain something to you without making you feel bad for not knowing it. Girlhood. So now I have the name, I have the mic. What should I actually talk about in these episodes? Do I even have enough to talk about? Then the more I just wrote instead of thinking, everything just came to me. Writing down one word led to 50 other ideas, a whole mind dump of the things I have thought about, what I think about, and what I will be thinking about. I realized my mind contained so much, and I think that's where everything got delayed. There was so much because when I posted, I told everyone that I'd release a podcast within a week or two. I think it's been around a whole month because I'm doing everything alone. I'm literally the host, the guest, the show, the management, and the network. I'm the planner, I'm the scripter, recorder, editor, photographer, model, guest, creative director. I felt like I had to do so many things. One thing I'm very good at, I fixate on the thinking, I overthink, and that would prevent me from taking action at a faster rate. Sometimes we spend so much time planning that we just put off the doing. And I have to always remind myself this is actually only the first episode, so I have so much to improve on, so much to learn, and the only way to improve is to keep taking action. To make it easier for myself and to create the podcast in a way that's structured, I have put a certain system in place. So if you are watching this podcast, you may notice I am reading a script I took so long to write beforehand because one of my weaknesses. One of my weaknesses is actually communicating and articulating my thoughts in a way that the other person can easily understand. And I've received so many comments and DMs asking me for advice because they said I explain things so well. But the reality of it is, when I'm filming, I stutter a lot. Sometimes my train of thought goes. It takes me a lot of takes until I get the flow in the way I want it to be. And some videos I've posted, I realized, is more susceptible, is that the word? More thingy to misunderstandings if I don't communicate in the way that's easily understood. Scripting will also make the editing process easier and faster for me to do. Last week I took my cover photo for my podcast. Why did I just sound so posh then? Oh my goodness. And even then I felt so daunting to think about. When it actually came to getting it done, it was so quick. I saved a few pictures on Pinterest just to get inspiration of how I wanted my cover photo to be. I was even thinking of hiring a studio for a photo shoot. There was also very sweet people who DM'd me when they found out that I was starting a podcast, recommending free studio spaces in London. So thank you for that. But here we are, I'm just in my bedroom. Last week at 11 p.m, I was like, I need this cover photo done or I'm never gonna get it done. I put on my outfit. Okay, this is what I'm wearing right now, is actually the outfit. Yeah. And I set up my camera. I put it on record because my plan was to just pose in front of the camera and then just screenshot the stills. So it was just easier for me, I think. I sat in front of my white wall in my bedroom, and within 6 minutes the shoot was done. We love when the model and the photographer just gets the shot done quickly, don't we? I took my Canon camera and connected it to my Canon app on my phone. This actually took longer because my Canon camera wouldn't connect to the Wi-Fi. That took like an hour to do. Then when it finally downloaded on my phone, I screenshotted 3 stills. I went on Canva, and the cover photo you see on my podcast is actually the first edit I did. Yeah. The only thing that took a few edits was the font of the title, but I ended up going with a font that I thought was really aligned with the cover photo and the vision for it. When you think something is going to take so long, it will take long. When you actually do the action you were thinking of doing, you realize how quickly you can actually achieve the goal you wanted. All you had to do was take action. Chapter 3. The difference between the girl and the woman. In this world, we've always been taught to pick between the traits, beliefs, and notions of girlhood or womanhood. You either embrace the innocence and vulnerability of a girl or the experience and resilience of a woman. I've always been made to feel like we have to only choose one or the other. But in reality, there is still a little girl inside of me. I am still every single age I have turned. I'm still the 6-year-old girl. I'm still the 15-year-old teenager. And at present, I am a 25-year-old woman. I am a girl and a woman. No matter the age we turn, society will always have expectations of us. No matter the age we turn, we will always be at a disadvantage in this world compared to men because we live in a patriarchal society. No matter the age we turn, as a Southeast Asian brown woman, or as they like to categorize us, a woman of color, we still have a disadvantage compared to our white counterparts because we are living under a capitalist system. Society will try to pressure us into conforming to the standards placed upon us. Men will judge us if we don't conform to the standards, but even other women will criticize us for not conforming to the standards. Coming from a Filipino culture, during my school years, I was told no boyfriend, no dating, no pregnancies, but as soon as I turned 25, the questions shifted to, why don't you have a boyfriend yet? When I was in the Philippines recently, people constantly spoke about marriage to me when I am as single as I can be. It's a stark contrast that highlights the pressures placed on women as they age. I started working when I was 16 years old. I've worked a variety of jobs in hospitality, retail, the NHS, in a school. In professional settings, being called a girl can feel insulting. Despite working the same job and having the same responsibilities, being perceived as a little girl implies a lack of capability and experience. Now, I have a very baby face. So even at my adult age, people in the workplace sometimes get it twisted and make you feel like you're very dumb, inexperienced little girl. Contrary to that though, I have found people give you more grace when you make a mistake. When you're considered a girl at work, they will undermine you, but will also guide you. Now, when you're considered a woman at work, they will respect you, but will be the first to critique you if you made a mistake. Can you really win? When I worked in secondary mental health, I was one of the youngest in the office. Majority of the people I worked with were in their 50s and 60s. They would always tell me things they wish they could do. One lady I worked with told me she wanted to go to a restaurant on her own with her dog and just sit by the beach with a glass of wine. I said, "What's stopping you?" She said people would look at me weirdly. And she asked another woman of a similar age, and they both said they would never do it. They both then asked me if I would ever go to a restaurant on my own, and I said yes. I told them I've been on solo dates before, and they said to me, "Yeah, but that's because you're still young. We can't do that now because we're too old." A few other women I worked with told me they wanted to go back to school, to university to learn. I said, "Do it. You are never too old to do anything." One of them said, "But I've already got kids and I'm already married, so how could I go back to school?" A few of them said, "We already have grandchildren. We're too old to go back to school." Sometimes they would compliment me in what I am wearing. And they would say to me they wish they could wear that, what I'm wearing. But they said they're too old to wear what I am wearing. When I was younger, I thought at 25 I'd have a quarter-life crisis. There was fear-mongering when you reach another birthday, the age you turn represents something bad. When I reflect on those experiences I had with other women much older than I am, I realised we were both exchanging comfort. I was constantly reminding them that they are never too old to do anything, whilst they're constantly reminding me that I am so young, so live your life. Make mistakes, live and experience life. Whilst society conditions us to believe that aging as women is scary, we also have the power to choose whether we accept or reject these notions on age. When I was younger, I really thought adults seemed so grown and they just seemed like they knew everything. They just seemed like adults. I have thought about this and I think, were the women when we were younger that grown and mature, or did they all just conform to the societal expectations of them so it seemed like they had their lives together? For them to get married and get pregnant at a young age was the normality. Having a partner and children obviously will shape you as an individual because it will be a different experience hormonally, biologically, physically, but more women my age and older are delaying marriage and having children. Also, speaking to women much older than I am, the women who I thought had life figured out, I realized nobody in this world has their life together. Every single one of us is winging life. Even the managers, the team leads, the docs I've worked with, you realize nobody on this earth knows every answer to every question. I am also grateful that this generation I've grown up in is accepting that we don't have to conform to the expectations and ideals placed upon us by society. We're also interested in healing our inner child, understanding our mental health, and embracing all sides of life. Like, I still have a teddy bear on my bed. I still love doing activities that are defined as form of play when we were children. So many of us were so scared of growing older that we didn't appreciate the wisdom we gained through those experiences. We spend so much time as children learning, being influenced by the people closest to us, being conditioned by our cultures, but when we reach adulthood, we have to spend much more time unlearning all the beliefs, truths, and ideals that had been placed upon us. Every day you have to be open to learn something new, but you also have to be open to challenge our belief systems. Balancing the traits of girlhood and womanhood means accepting that we are a blend of all our past selves, continuously growing and evolving. To accept that the innocence, vulnerability, wisdom, and strength in us can all coexist. We have to unlearn all the toxic traits we've been accustomed to do. We have to depict our subconscious minds. We have to become self-aware of how childhood has shaped the traumas and insecurities we have now. Life is all about a constant state of learning and unlearning. Chapter 4. Right, I need to pattern up. This is what happens when you're filming or podcasting in my bedroom. Someone tries to come in, silly. Okay, oh my goodness, am I looking pretty? Right, if I'm looking pretty, say yes. If I'm not looking pretty, zip your mouth. I'm so worried that this camera is just going to keep blurring and I will look back and think, oh my goodness, nothing is clear in my head. Ouch. Chapter 4. Audience expectation. Chapter 4. Audience expectation. This podcast was created as an extension of the topics I already speak about on my TikTok. I would always receive lovely comments from other girls. I would even receive many private messages and they tell me that my content has helped them in some way. These episodes on the Girl and Woman podcast will delve deeper into different thoughts, expectations, and beliefs we were conditioned to have. I personally have never been to therapy before, but I am a heavy promoter of going to therapy. Previously working in secondary mental health, working with doctors, psychologists, clinicians, provided me with such invaluable lessons. The people closest to me, my friends, family members, will come to me for free therapy sessions. I also receive so many DMs and even acquaintances will trust me enough to share their stories and tell me what they are personally going through. So I did come to realize that I have nurturing, healing energy. The only way I am able to fill other people's cup with love and kindness is through constantly talking to myself and having these conversations with myself, which will be heavily conveyed in these podcasts. The Girl and Woman podcast is dedicated to empowering women of all ages by fostering a community of continuous learning, self-improvement, and continuous support. The basis to a good support system is to start with understanding the self. These episodes aim to motivate other women to embrace lifelong learning, despite being told by society that the older we get, the more we should fear aging, because we're no longer physically as pretty or we're no longer as innocent as we once were. I am 25 years old and I am starting this podcast today. People might think I'm too old to start a podcast, whilst older women may think they should have started when I started. But the fact is that every single one of us are living our own journeys. The Girl and Woman podcast will cover topics, struggles, aspirations of what a girl and woman goes through by sharing my experiences, stories, and invaluable lessons I have learnt throughout the 25 years I have lived. In the next episodes, I will be covering having two culture identities, being a Filipina in the UK, being single and childless at 25 despite societal and cultural expectations of women, especially Southeast Asian women, that they should be on their way to getting married. From being a girl with so many friends to having only 3 friends as an adult, the life of being the oldest daughter, the oldest cousin in an immigrant family, to heal generational trauma whilst having to acknowledge my hyper-independence and avoidant attachment style, to realise that working will never be my goal and neither is being a housewife. Our minds are so filled with thinking, so many conscious to subconscious thoughts, so much to analyse. And sometimes I'm just a girl having the expectations of what a woman should know. Even though I'm just a girl, I am also a woman. Thank you so much for listening to this very first episode, and I would love to hear your feedback, whether that be good or if you'd like to communicate your constructive criticism with kindness. I will also take that on board. You can keep up with me on my Instagram and TikTok at Maria X Antonette, MariaXAntonette. Every episode will be released on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. Any inquiries, you can email info@mariaxantonette.com. And I will see you in my next episode. Bye. Love you. Bye.